On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
It's not the same as working for yourself. Shortly thereafter, I literally was like, you know what? I'll just quit my job and go be a janitor. I'll be the best darn janitor out there, but I'll be happy. And then I just literally, people are going to laugh at this, but I willed myself to create something. I said to myself every day, I said, I've got to create something to make myself working for myself again. I've got to come up with something that's going to allow me the freedom to work for myself. And I kept saying that and kept saying that. And then all of a sudden, here was this vision. Yeah. And I just literally executed that opportunity to create ARackAbove. And if people don't say that you can't will yourself to do something, I'm a firm believer that it's possible to do it.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. All right, guys, Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings. We're back today with an unbelievable story. We've got some Shark Tank action going on today. Our guest not only is an entrepreneur of multiple decades, but he gave up his entrepreneurship to go work for corporate America, figured out that was not a good scenario, and willed himself into such an incredible idea. Steve, I know you're here with me. We just got off the show, and you gave so much value, and your business is just about to blow up. Did you enjoy that show like I did, man? Because I feel like I'm a better person now that I get to know you.
Chaz, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I enjoyed meeting you last week when we chatted, and the energy that's here. And I think what you bring to the table to help people understand how simple and, it's not easy, but it's exciting. You can see, you can hear the excitement. You can hear the passion in the voices, especially mine. I mean, I'm all in. It's always fun sharing your pains and your wins to help others. It's awesome.
That's awesome, guys. So grab your pen and paper. It's an incredible story that Steve shares and all kinds of goodness. So get ready. Here it comes. All right, guys, we've got Steve to the stage. Steve, say your last name for me.
It's Schindehette.
Schindehette.
It's not spelled. Schindehette.
Dude, I'm glad you said it and not me, but I'm so glad to have you on the stage today of Gathering the Kings. Your story is one of unique entrepreneurial dreams and then making things happen. It's the Shark Tank story. And so I'm so excited to get into it. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chaz. I really appreciate it. It's my first podcast, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll just flow with it and have some fun.
That's awesome. So if you're listening now, just mark the date, earmark the date that you heard Steve and then how he said his last name, Schindehette, on Gathering the Kings, because I feel like you'll know this brand here nationwide here pretty soon. So Steve, tell us what your business is in a quick overview. Tell us what it is that you do.
So my product is called ARackAbove. I started a company called Penthouse Storage Solutions, none of which are related. It just happenstance that way. Okay. But I created a freestanding, no drilling, no tools, overhead garage storage rack that people can take with them. It's a one-time purchase and it fits any garage. It adjusts any width, any height, goes together with pins and clips.
It's incredible. So from a background, give us just like 30 seconds on your background. Like, how did you come to this idea? Are you an engineer for Boeing? Like, how did you figure all this out?
No, I'm just a dude. I'm just a guy who had a problem, who moved from a house, a condo that my wife owned after we decided I needed to get a job after I closed my previous company. And I had to rent a storage unit to be a garage because I didn't have a garage here. I had motorcycles, bicycles. I couldn't get stuff out of there without doing the proverbial pick up and move back and forth. And one day I looked above my head and I'm like, man, I got all this storage space above my head. Yeah, I got to do something with it. And you can't drill into the ceilings or the walls of the storage facility because they're going to hit you up for fines. That's right. I literally just sat there and went, what can I do? And I went up to the Lowe's Home Depot, bought some lumber and some hangers and created my first, call it a prototype for what it was, but it wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
And it just parlayed from there.
That's incredible. So, I mean, obviously, a lot of listeners listening right now have a similar story or have heard of a similar story, them getting into business or others. There was this problem and then they were able to come up with a solution. Really, it was for them. This was a solution for you to be able to access this extra storage space.
but you quickly realized that other people had the same problem. Tell us about that.
I figured if I have a problem, and believe me, I worked for myself in the past, and I'd be in people's houses and you could see how much clutter and junk they had in their garages. And it didn't take me long to realize, man, I bet you there's a whole need for this. But what was interesting is I started out thinking, oh, there's a market in the storage unit arena. Started going down that whole avenue going, hey, I could sell these to storage facilities. Well, that soon became a no-go. And I had to pivot and realize that this was going to be a residential product.
Yeah, 100%. Why? And for the listener who's paying close attention here, what you're talking about, Steve, is something that we all go through as entrepreneurs. We have to be able to pivot. It doesn't necessarily mean that we change product or change course altogether, but if you're taking notes here, you need to write this down, because oftentimes, whether we start a service-based business or a product-based business, and we think it's going to happen a specific way, and as we start getting into the detail of it, we need to shift and make moves. And so if you're experiencing that right now, just like Steve did, then that might be a shift that you have to make. You got to, maybe your end user in this case, for Steve's case, was what he had to change. And so tell us why you changed to residential, and then we're going to get into some of the other pieces here.
Rental facilities are in this business of renting storage facilities. So if you fill up a storage unit, they really don't have any business or interest in making it more efficient for them to not rent the next unit.
In fact, if you don't have enough space, you'll need another one.
That's the point. They're in the rental space business, right? So now here comes a guy with a smart aleck remark. You can rent this to your customers and save them money. We're not interested in saving them money. We want to take their money. So they're interested in moving on to a second, third storage unit versus making the ones they have more efficient. So I just had to rethink because thinking that was going to be my, what's the word? Your 100-pound fish. It wasn't. I had to go back and start thinking, okay, where do I go from here?
Instead, it's the John and Suzanne who's been in the garage and they got stuff from 1983 or from kids or whatever, and they need it organized and up out of the way so they can finally pull their cars back in. Is that what you're helping people do across the country?
Chaz, I literally yesterday put two full-size 2-car garage racks in one home because they had so much stuff. And before we put the racks up and completed them, we went up in their attic and we cleaned out all their stuff. It was all empty boxes, things that have been sitting up there for years. People just collect stuff.
That's right.
And it's Mary and Sue, it's Johnny and Betty, whoever it is. We just have a lot of stuff. That's valuable or not, people don't want to get rid of it. Well, this solves a problem and people are receiving it very nicely.
I love the energy around such a simple problem. Doesn't mean that it's not a big problem. Such a simple problem that your solution helps people live their life better. That's really what it comes down to, is that what we do as entrepreneurs is we solve problems and we increase either value, or we help people save time, or in this case, you're helping them enjoy their home better, their space. And so I love it.
Here's another pivot I had. When I created this thing, my whole catch was double your storage in 30 minutes. What a great idea, right? People are not going to procrastinate anymore. They see something can happen in 30 minutes. They're going to jump on this. They're going to buy it. Not the case. Start going to these home shows, start going to places, and people didn't care about the 30 minutes. They cared about the fact that they can buy it one time, take it with them when they go.
There you go.
So now, and my catchphrase was double your storage in 30 minutes. Not even after my second show, it turned to better overhead garage storage, because nobody cared about the 30 minutes. It's something that they can take with them. They're not damaging their homes.
Right.
And people are actually receiving that and thanking me for creating something that they can now use, which is just absolutely phenomenal. It makes me so proud.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that too. And I think that what you just hit on there, the emotional piece of entrepreneurship, is that oftentimes we get so bogged down, especially for the listener who's a 6-figure earner. They're wanting to get into the millions and have this big business and this big team that they hear us talk about. But the reality of it is that when you love what you do, or in this case, you're proud, you're excited, then there's confidence in not only what you can do for the customer, but you go home every night and you're just like, I'm crushing it. Whether it's literal, like you crushing the business, bringing home money, obviously that's a reflection, but you feel good about what you're doing because it's a great product. I love that.
I got a quick story for you that mimics that. So I sold a rack to a customer that I met at the home show. They came home, they put the rack up. They were so excited. They put it on their neighborhood watch Facebook page or whatever that neighborhood thing is.
Sure.
And a girl comes over and looks at it. And then she says, hey, I got somebody coming over to look at the rack. She didn't know him at the time. Fast forward a month, I hadn't heard from that lady. And then not even 3 weeks ago, I get an email. Are you still selling your rack? We're interested.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, absolutely. So long story short, I go up there, I put the rack in. The person that I sold it to at the home show and these new people became best friends because they went over to see my rack 2 or 3 times. They ended up staying in the garage
and chatting.
talking the whole time. Yeah. Next time they're spending Christmas together, they're going on cruises together. So not only am I creating a problem-solving product, but I'm bringing people together. What could be better?
What could be better? I love it. I love it. The only other part of the story we need now is that you're nationwide and you're $100 million company and you're touching people all over the world. So, okay, Steve, let's transition a little bit. Tell me how entrepreneurship for you started. You said you had a business before, or maybe multiple businesses. Tell us how entrepreneurship started.
My entrepreneurship started because I was miserable.
Okay.
I had my own business for over 20 years doing audio video. Right around shortly after the market crash, technology changed. Things were changing. People weren't listening to music the way they used to. They were all listening to it by the phone and through Bluetooth speakers. And I'm like, I'm out. I got to get out of this. This isn't what I signed up for. Because at that point, I'm becoming a computer guy versus an audio video guy. So closed my business, decided I was going to go work for corporate America, and got into corporate America. And a friend of mine told me years ago, a self-employed person is not employable. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I have.
I went to work for big corporate America and didn't like it.
That didn't last long, I take it.
It didn't last long. I was 3 deep breaths before you go in the door every day, and working with people that aren't motivated, people that don't really care about the client. It's just not. It's not the same as working for yourself. Shortly thereafter, I literally was like, you know what? I'll just quit my job and go be a janitor. I'll be the best darn janitor out there, but I'll be happy. And then I just literally, people are going to laugh at this, but I willed myself to create something. I said to myself every day, I said, I've got to create something to make myself working for myself again. I've got to come up with something that's going to allow me the freedom to work for myself. And I kept saying that and kept saying that. And then all of a sudden, here was this vision. Yeah. And I just literally executed that opportunity to create ARackAbove. And if people don't say that you can't will yourself to do something, I'm a firm believer that it's possible to do it.
Oh, 100%. Here a little bit later in the show, I'm going to ask you, a little spoiler alert, I'm going to ask you what book you recommend. But the listeners have already heard me talk about Think and Grow Rich. I read it once a year, every year. I take different notes every year. I'm at a different place every year. I'm looking for something different every year. But the common theme, obviously, within that book is that you're training your subconscious. And you can train it whatever you want. To your point, you said to yourself, I got to create something. I'm demanding this of myself. And when you do that, when I've talked to clients about this, when I've talked to other entrepreneurs about demanding this, whatever this is, whether it be success or sales or money or a family or peace or anything, you fill in the blank. If you demand it, you will do certain things that put you in a place to be able to be ready for it. And so to your point, the ideas were happening and ready for you when you had that storage unit issue, which then tumbled into this new idea and this new business. And so I thank you for sharing that because it's a huge point.
I agree.
All right. So tell me along the way here, obviously you're still, I know, like extremely early on this business and you haven't gone nationwide yet, but tell me a good decision that you've made along the way here that has just been instrumental that the listener today would be like, wow, that's super applicable. I can apply that to my business.
Wow. So can I tell you what book I recommend now? Because it kind of leads into what I'm about to say.
Yeah. That's good.
So there's a book by Michael Masterson, Ready, Fire, Aim.
Ooh, I love it. Yep.
And I picked up this book and started reading it. And due to COVID, due to trying to get things done, trying to find people to manufacture this thing locally, when I say locally, within a 2 or 3 state area of Orlando, Florida, was a big challenge. And I was driving with my buddy one day and he goes, Steve, just go back and get it manufactured where you're getting it manufactured. It may not be what you want to do now, and it may be more expensive than you need it to be, but you'll have product and you can get it out there and sell it.
Yep. And
I thought about that. I'm like, man, he's right. Don't sit there and think and hesitate. Just execute with what you know, because the mistake I think a lot of people make is afraid to make the mistake.
Yeah. Yep. Overthinking it
and just willing to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's going to cost me 20-30% more, but I need product. I need to get it out there. I need to get to see what the response is going to be from the people. That's what I did.
Yeah.
So on the heels of COVID, supply chains are really hard. Aluminum's gone through the roof, like everything else has gone through the roof. Not being able to purchase massive quantities of aluminum and get these things done on, flatbed loads. I got to piecemeal it as much as I can afford to get done, but that's okay. Because as soon as I get to the point where I need more, I'll just go ahead and I order more and just keep that going until this summer when I got everything in my back pocket for local manufacturing and distribution.
Exactly. I love it. And so that's a great example. Thank you for the good decision there, because you're right. That echoes into every listener. And if they're being honest with themselves right now, as you and I are talking, there's been multiple times that this person listening right now has thought, does this need to be better before I get it out? Now, we don't want to confuse quality with version 1, or in this case, just having something. So of course, as things progress, I'm sure that the structure of your unit or the design or the product, the material might be different over time. You've got a better product, a better material, a lighter, more combustible. I don't know, whatever the details are of the product. Maybe not combustible. That's turning on fire.
That would be good in a garage.
We don't need combustible. Yeah. But my point being is that you've got a product that you're selling and you're not waiting on. And I think that's huge in every single business, whether it's the hesitation of making it perfect that some people are going to deal with, or if it's just if it's not quite ready, like version 1 needs to get done and get out so that you can then make version 2.
Yeah. And you know what? You don't know what version 2 needs to be until you have version 1 in your hand and you're out doing what it needs to be doing, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. It's always going to be tweaked. So yesterday when I was putting those 2 racks in that house, I had some legs that had extra holes at the top. And the customer noticed, he says, "Why do you got extra holes?" I said, "Oh, these were my first revision." I said, "I realized after I did this that I got a post that goes through here and the hole's worthless." I said, "So every hole's $1. So I had to cut out the hole because I didn't need it anymore." He goes, "No, that makes sense." So every time you launch another product, every time you launch another revision, there's always going to be a better way to create it, a better way to
Yep. I love
it. Insulated, I guess.
Yeah, it was probably 3 or 4 shows ago, and we're still pre-launch here. Even as we record this, we're pre-launch for this podcast. And so I'm pre-recording a bunch of shows, and my podcast studio, my home, I'm having a beautiful home, an estate built here in Kansas City. And we've been building for 15 months in my office. And I've got this podcast space, some lounge chairs. It's going to be beautiful. I'm just so incredibly excited. And to your point, if I was so caught on that, I would be waiting. We wouldn't be recording right now, because right now I'm in one of my rental properties and I've got a blurred background because I'm in my son's, like right over here is his crib. Look, at the current moment, what's more important is us taking action, getting your story out so that other entrepreneurs can grow their business. And long-term, we can provide value as a Gathering the Kings community to entrepreneurs. That's more important than me looking and sounding pretty in a new studio. It's going to be nice, but action always wins.
Content's king.
There you go. Okay. So tell us about a bad decision, Steve. You talked about a good decision. What about a bad one?
All right. So if I could rewind what I started, I would go back and try manufacturing of machining and welding and things of that nature, because you don't know what you don't know. And when you take your idea to somebody, they're all going to jump on and go, "Yeah, we want to do this. We'll do this. We can do this."
Sure.
And you'll sit and you'll wait for months and months, only to find out that the guys that just told you they could do it and would do it, they're welders. They're not fabricators. They're not people that actually can put all this together. All they're going to do is take it to somebody else and let them do it, and then put you in the middle.
So am I hearing the solution here is fill the pipeline with multiple options? Is that what I'm hearing? Or what would you have done?
I think what the idea for me is I would have learned what it takes I would have gone to somebody who's a fabricator first, who I wasn't really necessarily needing to have them manufacture what I have, but to get the education saying, "Hey, what do I need to manufacture this? What kind of machines should I be looking for? When I walk into this shop, am I looking for a plasma machine, a plasma cutter? Am I looking for a press brake? Am I looking for what kind of welding machine?" Educate yourself as to whatever the product or service is, what does it take to manufacture or to bring that to light? Because I literally spent 8 months, 9 months on people that said they could do something for me and absolutely couldn't, but they were greedy. They wanted to be a part of this because they believed in what I had, but they weren't the ones that could actually execute the manufacturing.
Exactly. It's interesting because I've experienced this, but with banks. If you're listening, and Steve, you may not know this about me either, but I have a real estate portfolio. Not only do we own several businesses, and so I've done deals with banks when it comes to businesses, but on the real estate side as well. And here's what I've found is that every bank that you go to wants to do the deal. Every one of them. You bring the deal, they're like, "Oh, yeah, we want to do the deal." But when you peel back the layers of you or the opportunity or the property or the bank themselves, their appetite, it hardly ever works out. And so to your point, of knowing who the person is that you're talking to. So in my case, it's knowing the bank or what their appetite is, or maybe knowing my bankability before going there, or who that's compatible with. In your case, it's what am I really trying to build here, getting some education around the actual connection that's right for me. But then I would say the next step is that I'm always talking to like 3 to 8 banks, right? So you're talking to 3 to 8 manufacturers all the time, some domestic, some international. You've always got different relationships going, because guess what? At any moment, someone can drop you, or it's the wrong product, or their supply chain's backed up, or in my case,
quality goes bad.
Quality, yeah, exactly. There's just so many things that can happen. And when you have this key relationship that's going to keep me from buying new deals or you from making new product, we've got to be able to keep that pipeline full enough to, whether it's the wrong person or just a person who's not going to work out, we don't waste time on them, is really what it comes down to.
Right. I totally agree. I don't beat myself up over it, because I don't know what I don't know. And
Right,
to
of
get
course.
discouraged and to think that, man, I should have done it this way, should have done it that way. You listen to the guys on the Shark Tank, they say, how long you been in business? Oh, I've been in business 90 days and I've already sold 250,000. Really? Well, good for you. But that's not the path that most people take. So I can only base my success and my growth on what I've been doing. And to me, that's part of the learning process, because if you do it once, who knows, after this, I might do it again and I'll know that much more.
100%.
So don't beat yourself up.
Exactly. I love that. That's a good word. Thank you, Steve. And you should definitely take note of that as the listener today, because he's right. Your failure, in this case, him finding a welder as opposed to a steel or aluminum manufacturer, was a mistake. It was a bad choice. It was a failure, but he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And there are things in your business right now that you don't know until you just take a whack at it. And so you're either hesitating and you haven't taken the whack, and so you haven't been able to learn, or you're whacking and you're not paying close enough attention to the result to realize that you need to adjust a little bit. And this be, if Steve's still talking to the welder, obviously he needs to adjust and get to the aluminum guy. There's lots of lessons to learn in the failure if you see it as a lesson to learn as opposed to the end. All right. So tell us we're talking about decisions. You've given me an example of good and bad. Do you have a formula that you follow when it comes to decision making in your business?
Wow. Great question. I've never been asked that question, and I don't think I actually can consciously say that I I will tell you this. I spend a lot of time on my bicycle. I spend a lot of time on my motorcycle. I get a lot of head time where I'm not listening to music and I'm not listening to anything other than what's inside my head. And typically I don't make rash decisions. So I'm going to go through that process in my head. I'm going to go through that process in my gut. And then I'm going to research it the best I can. And then I come to a conclusion. Based on what I've learned, based on the mistakes I just told you about with the fabricators and the welders, your awareness goes up that much more, because you can now ask better questions of the person you need to talk to. 100%. And based on those questions, my decisions then are made.
Yep. I love it. So I can obviously already tell you're a more analytical individual. And like you said, you're not a rash decision maker. And so there's a lot of entrepreneurs like you. And then there's a lot of entrepreneurs on the other side of the room that kind of just make decisions based on emotion, which is fine. They're the ones that are hot-headed and excited. And there's a lot of value on both sides. So what I'm hearing you say for the listener, for the value, so I'm pulling out what he's saying here, is that number one, he gets time alone. And I would 100% agree with this. You have to hash out. That's what he's talking about in his head. He's got to hash out what it looks like, what it potentially looks like, good, bad, worst case, best case, relationships involved, what else is necessary, cost, no cost, what does this affect? All these things he's hashing out as he's riding his bike. I do the same thing with my bicycle. I do the same thing when I'm at the gym. I do the same thing in different times that I've got where it's just me. So I love that point. The other piece, whether you're analyzing and researching, because that's more of the analytical approach. The other emotional approach is more of like a gut feeling and you just roll with it. Either way, fine, no big deal. But then the next point that you made after that, which everybody should be able to relate to, is conclusion. You brought yourself to a decision. Don't lag. Don't hesitate. Don't continually research over and over or be stuck in an emotional feeling forever. Decide. Move on.
How many times have you been out on your bicycle and said, you're not even going to think about anything today. I'm not going to ride hard. I'm just going to go out and just enjoy the day. And what you think you're thinking about, you're not thinking about. But in reality, all of a sudden, you wake up the next day and you've got it solved.
Yep.
You figured it out. And you weren't even really thinking that you were figuring it out. But sometimes when you're not thinking, you're doing your best thinking.
100%. I love that. It's an approach. It's a purposeful approach to rest. Actually, that's really what we're talking about is we're discharging our high performing brains and bodies and functionalities in our business and even in our families and all of that. And I got 3 kids with one on the way. Like, it's crazy. We're building a house. We got businesses. We're buying properties, like all this stuff. But then at the same time, I got to be able to get quiet. I got to be able to rest. I got to be able to
important.
100%. Love it. Okay. I love that process. I love, even though you didn't feel like it was the defined process, you gave it to us. It was gold. You're giving so much value here. I love it. We're going to transition to a speed round and we're going to wrap this up. The listener knows this section, right? So I'm going to go through these quick. I want 1-word answers, maybe a little, expansion of the answer, but basically 1 word. And I want the answer to just hit the listener right between the eyes, right between the ears, if you will. Okay. First question, Steve. If you could only track one metric forever and ever in your business from here going forward, what is it?
Progress towards my goals, I think, would be my biggest answer. Just to be able to take that time and these decisions and have a timeline of my tracking of my goals.
Okay. So he gave you like 3 answers in one there. He said, first off, you have to have a goal. Then he said you had to track the goal. And then he said you had to have a timer on the goal. Okay. So he gave you 3 in 1. Great job. Appreciate that one. You already gave us the book recommendation. That's my second speed round question. Thanks for that. And then the third one is this: Steve, do you intentionally network or mastermind with other entrepreneurs? And if you do you pay for it?
No. Yes. The answer is yes. I constantly am looking for people who work for themselves by themselves, because I learn every time I go to the place, I learn something new. And Chaz, people are willing to help you. If you're 100%. On the same journey, then you're all in the same train, man, the help is just pouring out of them. They want to help. They want to share their stories. They want to share their successes.
Yep.
And even their failures. But I found myself years ago when I was self-employed, hanging out with other self-employed people. My circle became entrepreneurial by happenstance. I don't know how that happens. Just maybe you can explain it better than I can. But next thing you know, I'm looking around like, all my friends are self-employed. All my friends are entrepreneurs.
Yep.
It's interesting. But no, I do not pay for any of it. I go seek it out. If I go to these expos, if I go to like tomorrow night, I'm doing a chamber meeting for Seminole County, Florida. And I got a booth sitting up there, and I'll be out networking and talking to people and trying to find out who's who and what's what.
Yep. 100%. I think that there's value there, and we all have those moments or people around us. And sometimes they're harder to get to depending upon who we are and who those people are, but everybody's got to start somewhere from that angle. So I love that perspective. I love it.
Quick story for you. I went up to the Villages, which is a big retirement community, did a little expo up there. A guy comes over to me and says, "Hey, are you shipping these things yet?" I go, "No." I said, I haven't figured it out. And he tells me what he does. And after next sentence, he's like, "Hey, I've been in logistics for 25 years. He goes, a 3PL, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I got his card. We're communicating over email, and he's going to help me set up logistics. So when I need to start shipping these things across the country, he's going to be able to help me out. You just never know who you're going to meet.
Exactly. It's funny, obviously, gathering the Kings community. Inside of the community, we have roundtable groups for 6-figure owners, 7-figure owners. And what you just said is what I hear the most back from entrepreneurs. It's if I can get into an environment, sometimes unpaid, sometimes paid. I've done both. And particularly what I'm looking for is a scenario where I can get in association with someone that can give me that one piece that changes everything. And it doesn't have to be like makes me $1 million, but sometimes it does, right? It leads it to a scenario that leads it to a scenario that leads it to a relationship that leads it to whatever. But if you're not looking for that, whether it's a free or in a paid scenario, that is why people get around other people. I hear you, what you're saying. It's already changed the trajectory of your current business. And my guess would be that it would be for the listener as well. So last question, Steve, if you lost it all today, what would you do?
I'd will myself to do something else, Chaz.
You do the same thing, Steve?
I'd start praying tomorrow and I'd start doing it again. And I'd come up with another solution that solves everybody's problems.
You're telling me that you're just crazy enough that you do it again, huh?
I could come up with 2 or 3 different things. Listen, if you really just open your eyes and you look around and you just are aware, there are things out there that are so simple to solve and so easy to make money. You just got to will it. You just got to say, man, open my eyes and show me the light, because it's out there.
That's right. That's incredible. Steve, we so appreciate all the value that you've given to us here today. How does someone who's listening, whether they want to buy your product, they want to get a rack in their garage, or they just want to connect with you as a professional, how do they find you?
I would love them to go to my website. It's ARackAbove.com, all one word. You'll see a video on there of a girl putting this thing together, talks about all the different ways you can utilize it and how to adjust. I've also got a YouTube channel, ARackAbove on YouTube, and hopefully this podcast will be on there shortly. And you can hit me on Instagram, ARackAbove, and also on Facebook. I'm ARackAbove. So I'm ARackAbove everywhere, man.
That's awesome. ARackAbove. And you can find Steve, and obviously you can tell that he's a giving heart, and that's why he's here today. And so connect with him if that makes sense for you. So we so appreciate you, Steve. Thanks for coming to the show. And we'll be, I'm sure, talking very soon as you continue your journey, and we stay in touch.
Thanks, Chaz. It was a blast. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Gathering the Kings. We hope you got a ton of value today and learned a thing or two about taking your business to 7 figures and beyond. If you desire more and want a community around you to help you get there, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. That's gatheringthekings.com. And I want you to apply for our next Becoming a King 90-day intensive. We are extremely exclusive by nature as a group. What that means is that we're really wanting only the entrepreneurs who take their business and targets super serious to apply. So if that's you, you think you got what it takes to level up your business, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com and apply. And we will see you on the other side.